What's going on, guys? It is Madman Plant, Good Luck Stuff, and Vindec EU and Smoke Busters Media, all tied into one platform. And today we have a in-person guest, which is awesome. Gabi appeared on my mental health panel in Fredericksburg, which, if you're not familiar, the Vindec EU Healing the Hustle is a great platform. And August 20th, we have our next round of panels coming up, and we already have 5 great panelists that are going to take the stage and really share with the community. And this is what it's all about. And as I get better at memorizing my declaration here, welcome to Vindec EU, where healing isn't a destination, it's a declaration. Each week, we speak to real people navigating trauma, burnout, and purpose, because behind every business, brand, or hustle is a human being. Tonight, we're diving into mental health, entrepreneurship, because none of these are going alone, even when it feels like it is. So, a little update. Also, August 15th, we have Honey's first event where we are making cards for hospice kids that me and Honey will be handing out. So if you've met Honey along the way and want to spend some time with her, it's going to be a great platform. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Gabi onto the stage. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well. Glad to see you again.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into stuff, you were on my first panel.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what you thought about it.
I think we don't have these conversations enough. And I think a lot of times these are the pieces everyone talks about: success and making more money and signing more clients and doing XYZ. That is more... It looks better for the gram, but I think these conversations are what gets us from where we are right now to where we're trying to build to. And so I think it was a beautiful event. I think everybody shared with such honesty, which was really cool, because sometimes you can get people on a panel and nobody wants to really talk about stuff. It's all very fluff, and I feel like it wasn't. So I had a great time. I'm excited to go to the next one for sure.
Oh, will you be at the 20th?
Yeah, I'll be there. Not as a guest. I'm not a panelist this time, but yeah.
Well, you're always welcome back as a panelist on our future ones too.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, no, I really like this, and it's something that I think is important too. I think a lot of times we try to carry such shields around us and we pretend that everything's okay. Like, for instance, when everybody asks me about how business is, I'm always like, oh, it's great, even though sometimes it's not great. But it's easier to say it's something that it's not, because you don't have to have that honest conversation and be like, well, this and this and this. So I do agree. And then also I think so it's important because it creates the normalcy for it. A lot of times when we speak to like people and they talk about like older generations, you know, how this wasn't talked about, it wasn't brought up.
No,
it's very taboo. And in today's world, it seems to be more about acceptance versus just trying to hide it under a rug and pretend that it's not happening.
No, I agree. And I almost think that if there was a silver lining to COVID, is that it made it okay to be saying that to people. Like, I don't know that I remember even on social media prior to that other than people would just be like, oh, here she goes again, talking about her life. Like, people would be more, it seemed annoyed when people would share like that. Mm-hmm. But I feel like post-COVID or during COVID, we were all kind of struggling in different ways, and it made it okay to have that conversation. And I feel like that's carried on the last couple of years as well, which I think is great, because that's an important thing that people need to have those conversations for.
Yeah. And then also too, I think also it's a learned behavior. It's not something that you're born with or necessarily know how to do, which is, even be honest with yourself.
Right.
And then have to confront yourself in front of a crowd or a group of people can definitely be traumatizing.
Yeah, for sure.
So was there any takeaways from the panel that you were like, wow, this is really unique compared to different things that you've been to?
I think it was, one, it was cool to have a guy on the panel, because I think as girls, we talk about a lot of the stuff within each other, within our relationships. Like Gigi and Tiffany and I talk all the time. So those are two of the people that I bounce stuff off of and go to when I'm kind of at wit's end. But having him in there, I felt like not enough men share those things. I thought that was really beautiful. And to me, that one, I feel like took a lot of bravery, because not as enough men do that. But the other thing was, I just think he just had such a beautiful perspective, and still being in it and still working. And I think you don't have to be on the other side of whatever something is for you to have some lessons that you can teach back. So I just thought it was a great event.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, let's dive into you a little bit. Today, we're going to kind of focus on that topic about mental health and moving forward and everything. I think one thing we'll talk about that we both share is we were both adopted.
Yeah, which is crazy because I didn't know that until later when we talked about it.
Yeah. So you talk about, the questions I carried and the emotional journey of finding my birth family. Now, have you actually met your birth family?
I have. So I know my birth mom. I met her about 8 months after I had my daughter, so at 21.
Okay.
And then, unfortunately, my birth father actually committed suicide when I was 10. So I unfortunately didn't get to meet him. But I did get to meet his brother. I have a couple of cousins. And so I do know some of that family as well. I haven't dug into the history as much as I probably should or want to. But yeah, it was a wild experience because I don't know if you felt like this. I never really felt like I fit in anywhere I ever went. Like I always just kind of didn't feel like I belonged. And so figuring out some of that roots pieces of where I actually came from, for me, solved a lot of that stuff, which was important. I feel like it gave me a lot of understanding for a lot of things that didn't really make sense growing up.
Now, I wasn't told I was adopted until I think it was like around my 13th birthday. I found out.
Wow.
Yeah, see, I was adopted from Romania.
Okay.
So when they killed the leader, my grandmother, who I was very close to, told them that they should go to Romania because they just opened up orphanages for adoption. So my parents went over there and they found me and my sister in two different cities in Romania. Now, with that being said, what was the situation like for you? Were you put in an orphanage or what? Like, what was the deal?
So my birth mom was 15, I believe, when she got pregnant, 16 when she had me. She really, I'll refrain from telling her part of the story, but I'll tell the part that is mine to tell. I had agreed to give me up for adoption. And so she was in a place where they would actually take me. My parents had already done all the paperwork. So they knew that I was coming, that I was going to be born soon. And I was in a foster care home for maybe 2 days before I went to my parents. And then I knew my whole life that I was adopted. That was a very open conversation from as long as I can remember. It was just kind of as young as I was to be able to understand it. It was explained to me and told to me, which I think was good because then I didn't have to find out in a way that didn't make sense or whatever. So I do love that they did that for sure.
Now, did people make fun of you when you were younger about being adopted? Because when I first started telling people, it was kind of like, I felt like an outsider because everybody else had real parents and I didn't technically have real parents, but I did. They're great parents. But at the same time, when I got older, when I told people I was adopted, it was cool. You know what I mean? So it went from being like teased and, you don't have real parents to, oh my God, that's so cool that you're adopted.
No, I didn't really happen to me. I remember thinking it was interesting because I knew I was adopted, going to friends' houses and seeing how they looked like their family or how they had like certain mannerisms. And so when I became a mom, I don't know that I really thought I would ever really want to look for my birth parents until I became a mom and I realized how differently I was as a mother. And I was curious if that was genetic, and it turns out it was. So that was kind of cool. But I didn't get teased about it. And it's not even something I really talk about that much now that I think about how many times I've had that conversation. It's not that often that it's come up. So I don't know.
Now, where geographically did you start your journey as far as being adopted?
I was living in New Mexico, and my mom was in New Mexico as well, just like 300 miles or so south of the town that I actually grew up in. The crazy part is that my birth mom's family, so there's 2 or 3 uncles and a sister. My uncle that I'm actually named after, my Uncle Gabe, was the math teacher for all of her siblings except her in high school. And I didn't know that till much later. He was like, wait a minute, mentioned the family name. And I was like, huh. And she's like, no, I never had him as a teacher, but all my siblings did. So she was in proximity from one of my favorite uncles. which was kind of crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how the universe works like that. Now, it was your birth father who killed himself.
Yeah.
Now, what was his situation like with that?
So he was, and I know as much as that I've been told as far as asking, because that's kind of a lot, kind of a heavy topic to discover. But he was a Golden Gloves boxer in the Navy, and he was apparently really, really good. And he had come home from active duty, and I don't know if he was at that point out of the military completely, or if he was on like a break or something. But he went to a bar, and he was trying to like melt down his gun, which was very weird. Like his family should have known something was really fucking weird about that. But he was going to different places in town asking where he could melt his gun down. And everyone's like, I don't know where you can melt a gun down. That's weird. I don't know what you're talking about. And he ended up going to a bar, having too much to drink. His friend got into a fight, and he jumped into the fight to help his friend. His friend left, and these guys, because they knew he was a boxer, just stomped the crap out of him. It was a very unfair fight, and only thing that I know is something shifted in him after that fight. And it wasn't short. It wasn't too long after that he actually committed suicide.
Do you know how he did it?
With a gun. Yeah.
Was it the gun that he was trying to melt down?
Yeah. So it was like, that was, and I don't think there's no one to blame for it. It's not like nobody would know. I think that's a weird statement to want to say, but who would think why somebody else would want to do that? So yeah, it's sad, but.
Oh, it is very sad. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. He was actually in Time magazine because apparently the year that he committed suicide was the highest number of suicides in the United States. And he's actually in the magazine as one of the ones that took his life that year, which is crazy.
Well, I mean, at least they were able to like honor him and recognize him in some way.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, with that being said, what was life like after all that? Like, was that directly like affect you growing up? Were you around that, or were you third party from all that?
See, I didn't meet anybody until I was 21. So,
you were just told all this.
Yeah, I was told of this as an adult.
Okay.
After I met my birth mom and then met his brother and some of his family, my birth father's family, that's where I heard the stories and learned more about what actually happened and how he passed away.
Now, with that being said, what's the relationship like with everybody today? With them, are you still close with them? Or?
No, I'm a little bit more of a loner than people probably think that I am. And I could call him right now if I wanted to, but I think part of it was trying to figure out who I was. And then the other part was just kind of, I kind of checked that box. I have an understanding that I was essentially looking for at the time, and I'm good. I was raised in a wonderful family. I'm very lucky in that regard. So there doesn't feel like there's something missing necessarily, but it is pretty cool because I went home for Christmas, not this past year, but the year before. And I went and saw my birth grandpa, who is in his 80s. And he, for lack of a better to say, he kind of felt like home. You get around certain people and you feel like you've known them all your life, or you just kind of, there's this natural nervous system kind of let down where you just like kind of exhale and you're cool. That's how it was the minute that I saw him, and I hadn't seen him in probably 15 years at that point. And my son gravitated to him. My husband was like, oh, I can see he was an emotional guy. He's like, oh, so being a crybaby, that's your family trait. Like, we're all just very like deeply feeling people. So it was really cool. Really, really cool.
Now, moving forward, you talked about getting into violent relationships as you were getting older and navigating pregnancy. Was that when you were young? Yeah.
So I had my daughter. I met her father online on AOL chat. But I was working for AOL at the time. I was a corporate trainer for them, and I met her dad in a chat. And he lived in Florida. I lived in New Mexico. I actually flew to see him. He was on work release for I don't know what the official charge was, but it was essentially he'd taken a tire and beat somebody within an inch of their life, and he had good lawyers, and so he got work release instead of prison. That should have been a red flag.
Yeah, it's like maybe he's not very good at handling his anger.
Yeah, that might be kind of a problem. But I think there was some things that were going on kind of in my immediate environment that he was more of an escape than it was love. I think, and that kind of draw was like, I'm from a really tiny town. Nobody that I knew really was leaving for much. And so he kind of seemed like my ticket out of there. It worked out in terms of I have a beautiful daughter who's incredible, but I wouldn't want to walk through those years if I didn't need to.
Now, talk a little bit about like how does in your situation, how does abusive relationships happen? You fly down, I'm sure, like the honeymoon stage or whatever, it's like, oh my God, this is an escape. I'm in a
Right.
great place. When do things change? And is it fast change or is it slow? Is it over time? It starts with one thing and then another thing and then another thing. And then now you're in this big hole. Like, what's that like?
I think it was a gradual process because, a lot of times people say, oh, women get into domestic violence or abusive relationships because they're lacking self-esteem or they're not successful or they're not confident or, they're taking someone who was broken, so to speak. And I wasn't at the time. I was doing really well. I was making great money. I had dropped out of high school, but I was doing well for myself. I had a little Del Sol sports car, had a roommate. Like, I was happy. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was my favorite car I'll ever probably own. They're so great. And so I was happy. And I think there was enough because I wasn't out in the world or whatever. There was enough in me that I had grown up with that I hadn't necessarily really dealt with within my family, that he felt like a belonging that I hadn't found yet. And so he was an escape. I think in the beginning, it was very isolations things. So when you think about domestic violence and everybody's story looks and kind of has a different path, but mine was isolation. So he may have been all the way in Florida, but he started to kind of isolate me from my family and my friends. Like, oh, how come you're going to go out with your friends tonight? I want to talk to you. I want to stay on the phone. And so I had a really great core group of friends at the time. And he would always be like, oh, well, she's probably hating on you. And so he would just kind of put these little jabs out there. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but I started to realize that it was basically like he was getting into my psyche in terms of how I showed up in the world. And then it was like, oh, I don't want you wearing that out. Like, I wasn't ever dressed slutty out in the world. But it was like, oh, you should only wear that for me. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's like, I don't know why that should have been a red flag for me. And so the isolation started more and more. And then when I had went to visit him and meet him in real life, it was just even more of that. And then the physical abuse, I want to say was within a couple of months of actually moving there. And I was too ashamed to go home. Like, I already kind of knew like, this is probably not good. But there wasn't anything to go home to at that point. I had quit my job. I don't know if I could have gotten it back. And I wanted out of my hometown. And so I was like, I guess I'll figure it out. So not a good decision, clearly, but it was my thought process at the time.
Now, like, what are like some of like describe the abuse? Let's go into it a little bit. Like, what is abuse in your situation, and is it like sexual, physical,
all of the
emotional?
Above. Yeah. So I think as somebody who dealt with both physical and emotional abuse, I will say that the emotional abuse was far harder to overcome. He was a fighter as well. He was Taekwondo and all kinds of different mixed martial arts. And I did box and kickbox for a spell. And so we would fight like men. And so I got to the point where I would go looking for fights out in bars and restaurants and clubs and whatnot. And my mentality was, if I can stand toe to toe with a grown man who could probably wreck me and he hasn't knocked me out yet, then I'm fine. I'm not scared of anything. We didn't have a lot of his things were taking of my things, like hiding my cell phone, not letting me have my keys to my car, just kind of trying to make me lose the circle that I was building within my immediate environment. And one of them was, he was convinced that some guy at my previous job, at the job I was at the time, had wanted me. And so he's like, you can't work there anymore because he's not respecting our relationship. I'm like, I still have to make money. Like, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was just at every point, it didn't matter what I did. One, he wasn't happy. And two, it wasn't isolated or controlled enough for him. The first physical abuse situation, and actually shared it on my podcast, Resilient Heart, last year, but it was, I had forgotten to cut the crusts off of his sandwich. And so I took the sandwich down to him. He played this game called Ultima Online way back then, and gave him his sandwich, drink, chips, whatever, gave him a kiss, came back upstairs. I was making my sandwich, and I could hear, we were in a 3-story house, and he was in the basement, and I could hear his steps coming up. And I always knew based upon his steps how bad it was going to be for me, because there was a certain way that his foot would hit the floor that I was like, oh shit, this is going to be bad. Or he's just a little irritated, or he's just a little bothered. But that particular night, it felt like an elephant coming up the stairs. And my back is turned. There's a window in front of me, and my back is turned to him. And I turn around to like, hey, what? He's like, how dare you not cut off the fucking crust on my sandwich? And he literally picked me up and held me by my neck. And I was kind of he had backed me up into the countertop, and I could feel the edges of the countertop. So I was kind of like hoisting myself up so I wouldn't actually lose consciousness. And then he just dropped me, spit in my face. And he's like, fuck it, fix it. I was like, oh my gosh. And I actually went home after that. I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. And then, like most abusers do, I'm so sorry. Let's go to anger management. I would never do that. Just don't do things that make me mad. And, it's all the song and dance that you hear from probably all of us. It's a similar pattern. And so I went back. And shortly after that, I got pregnant with our daughter. And it didn't, unfortunately, the abuse didn't stop.
Do you think being pregnant made it worse?
It made my isolation worse. So he didn't have a traditional career, so he was kind of come and go as he pleased. Once I started to show that I was physically showing that I was pregnant, he hadn't decided whether or not I was going to be allowed to keep our baby, is really what his stance was. And so I wasn't allowed, once I started to show, to be out in public in general. I could go to the grocery store, I could go to the pool in our subdivision, and that was pretty much it.
Now, what does that mean? I'm not going to decide. I haven't decided if you're going to keep your baby or not.
He didn't. He basically was thinking he was going to make a decision for us without my permission. Whether I don't know if he was like, oh, I definitely want you to have an abortion. I don't know if his thought was giving her up for adoption because he knew that I was adopted. But he was almost like, I was waiting for him to decide what I was going to do. Like, that was kind of the way he thought of it. And for me, I already knew I wanted to keep her. I didn't know that she was a girl, but I knew I wanted to keep her. And I didn't really know how that was going to go. But there was never a point that I was like, I don't want for this to be the next phase for my life. Not with him specifically. But I think at that point I was still hopeful that he would change, or that he would calm down, or he would whatever. And that maybe we could raise her together, which is, sad and naive. Very, very naive.
Well, I was going to say that in a way that does kind of sound a little delusional. You already
sure.
know the situation you're in. And did you think just because you were going to have a kid, maybe he would change because now there's a baby involved? But, that can, in some situations, having a child makes things even worse.
Oh, no. And he essentially knew me well enough to know I grew up in more of a religious background. Being a single mom was kind of a fate worse than death. And okay.
Gotta check his door.
No, you're right. He pretty much, I'm trying to think how I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. My son's music in the background. All I can hear is boom, boom, boom.
Oh.
Yeah. I was asking about the delusion thinking.
Yeah. I think the more women that I worked with in a similar scenario or had similar experience, I think we were all pretty delulu at different points. And I think part of it was really trying to see the good in people. That's just the way that my brain works. That's the way my heart works. But I also think there was a part of me that just didn't really know what else to do. Like, I think, social media wasn't what it was back then. So you didn't have as much of an ability to speak out or have community or tell people what's going on. And I didn't have use of my phone on a very regular basis because he would take it. And so part of me, I think, just kind of surrendered to that this was going to be my life. And then I ended up leaving him when I was 9 months pregnant. And that was kind of that. I flew back home, had my daughter in New Mexico. He came out. Security was at the hospital. He wasn't allowed to be with her by himself. It was as not Jerry Springer, but more like it was just not. It was not what you would hope for your baby. But
now, what was the thought process of having the baby, being tied to him for the rest of your life as him the father, or doing like an abortion and being free from him and just maybe trying to start over?
that wasn't a thought. That wasn't even for me, even something that entered my mind. I didn't know what was going to happen. I also knew if I was going to keep her, I needed to go home because I knew I would be safer there than I would be with him. He never physically abused me in my home state, probably because my family is well connected enough that he knew he was not going to get skate by on anything that were to have happened to us. And so that was my safe space. And so I moved home and stayed there for pretty much until he passed away, I think.
How did he pass away?
He was killed in a motorcycle accident.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, in a way, was that a relief?
Oh, yeah. It was. I tell it anytime I've ever told that story or say, oh, her, where's her father? And I'm like, oh, he's dead. And they're like, oh my gosh.
She got hit by a bus.
Yeah. And they're just, like people get so sympathetic. And I'm like, no, it was the best gift of our lives because it gave us freedom. We didn't have him with his thumb on us. We didn't have him harassing me, threatening boyfriends, just being not a good human. But that was probably the biggest gift of my life is the day that he died. I didn't know it at the time. It was a very mixed bag because we weren't together and I had a boyfriend at the time. And so it was just kind of trying to figure out different points. I really prayed for peace. Like, I'm like, I wish this would just, and it wasn't always abuse. It was just manipulation and fuckery. And I was just like, this can't be my life forever. Like, I'm just praying for that. And then he died. And then I'm thinking, did I literally pray for his death? Like, am I a horrible human being? And so there was just so much to unpack at 25 years old, which is just really young. And I was super naive just to kind of figure out what was going on, but it was the best gift of our life. It really was.
Now, did you ever think that there'd be a time where you could run into a situation where you go to jail, like for murder, or like where you guys got in a huge fight and you had to defend yourself? Like, was there anything like that where it's like, I don't know whether I'm going to wind up dead or in jail?
The night that I left him, when I was fully pregnant, and I've told this story on Resilient Heart, so I don't mind sharing it, but essentially he had gone out to the club. He was a pill popper, definitely very much an addict. I probably think he had bipolar, definitely a narcissist. Like, there's a lot more that I understand about him and kind of who he was now that I didn't know back then. But he had been out all day. When you get to the end of pregnancy, going to sleep is absolutely fucking horrific. Like, you just don't sleep well. And so I had just finally fallen asleep. It was probably 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And he came in the bedroom and he's just screaming at me. And this isn't even my fucking kid. And I don't even know who the fuck he's just unhinged. And it was unhinged in him in a way that I'd never seen before. And I'd seen definitely, like when people say, like there was no light in their eyes. Like that was him. And I'd seen it, glimpses of it over the years, but this felt different that night. And he was essentially yelling and screaming at me. We had this big, huge king size post bed that, like, the posts were these solid wood. It's like a whole tree, big, huge solid wood posts. And so he's talking shit and he's slurring his speech and he literally fumbles over his feet. And I'm way up. The bed is really, really tall. And I'm on the other side, and the back side of it is the window. And then it's down 2 flights of 2 stories to the ground. And so there was nowhere for me to go. And so he's coming at me and he's yelling and he's slurring his speech and he starts stumbling, and he literally stumbled and just knocked his head right into the thing and just knocked him out cold on the ground. And I was like sitting on the bed, I'm looking, I'm waiting, I'm hanging out. He had a dog that was my favorite dog, a pity. Boss came running in, licked his face. He was knocked. And I was like, okay. And I called my parents. They were in California at my brother's college graduation. And I told them, I need you to come get me.
He's like, listen, homeboy passed out, and I think I want to leave now.
Yeah, no, seriously, and I think I had that moment that night where this is really where it could end. Like, I never had a moment in all of those years where I thought he might actually end my life, because he would only take it far enough to teach me a lesson or to make sure that I knew he was the boss. This felt very much, it had a very different tone. And so, yeah. And so I called my dad. They arranged, he flew into Florida, rented a vehicle. He woke up in the morning, had a huge knot on his head. I was like, little Susie homemaker, made his favorite breakfast, ironed his shirt. My gosh, it's good morning. How are you? What happened to your head? Like, playing absolutely stupid.
What happened?
Yeah, just being
asleep.
Completely. He's like, I don't know. I must have passed out on the floor. Like, he just had no recollection of it. But I knew he was going to be gone all day. And so did the usual, Susie homemaker bullshit and sent him on his way. And then I would just check. I'm like, hey, can you stop over here? So I was sending him places that were further out to give me more time for my dad to land to get here. And the minute the door closed and he locked it, I was getting garbage bags and I was just throwing everything that I owned into garbage bags, and I couldn't physically take him down the stairs. So I was like sitting on my butt and pushing it to the bottom of the stairs. And then when my dad got there, he loaded everything in the car, and I told him I need to not fall asleep in Florida, like, because I was genuinely concerned that he would find me, because he was connected enough that I was thinking that could probably happen.
Like, can I do like gang activity?
He was just into just illegal shit. He
like,
just
family was law enforcement. Like,
no, he was just into illegal activities, and so he had a connection and a web. And I don't know even now how big the web really was, or if it was part of what was used to control my behaviors. Was like, oh, so-and-so saw you here, or this and that. He did a lot of that kind of mind fuck things. And so I don't know how connected he really was. But I knew I wanted to not be in the state of Florida when I fell asleep that night. And so we got to the Georgia state line, we got a hotel, and then we drove back home to New Mexico. And I had my daughter like less than 24 hours after that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So with all of this being said, how does that change how you love somebody? You're madly in love. I'm gonna leave where I am. I'm gonna come be with you, baby. And then it turns out to be like that. How does that work psychologically for how you like lust for somebody or love somebody or connect with somebody? Like, what did
it change the way I looked at love kind of in general? Absolutely. I think too, and I don't know for other abusers if this was kind of their lived experience, but safety and calm felt very triggering for me. So it wasn't like I didn't date other good guys after he died. It was, if you seem to be calm, collected, without a temper, that was very like, that's suspicious to me, because I had spent so many years with everything being this really aggressive, yelling, screaming, throwing things, choking, punching, breaking stuff, threatening, all of that my nervous system is just, that's where it was. And I chose horrible human beings for a long time. And if I had somebody that was great, I was not kind to them, because I didn't know how to accept love in a way that wasn't harmful. Or I was in like a prove me mode. So I would get with somebody else who was shitty, and I would do the like, I'm going to prove that I can be a good woman to you, and you're not going to act like that. And just is more delulu, until I really sat down and had to look at my own shit, went into therapy, did tons of deep intuitive healing, and figured out where that wounding was that allowed me to let somebody like that in, but also what pattern of belief built the way that I keep choosing. Because this is like, I joke about this when I was doing more healing coaching with women. When we keep dating the same guy with a different face over and fucking over, the only common denominator is you. So you got to figure out why you are choosing those behaviors, those habits, and what ends up being these patterns. Because if you don't heal that, then you're literally going to keep doing the same shit forever. And then I met my husband, who's like the most wonderful human being on the planet. Very calm, has never yelled at me, has never called me out of my name. And it's peaceful. And that I had to grow into. That was a transition for me too.
What would you say that one of the misconceptions about domestic abuses now that you've dealt with it? And in a way, it seems like in a way you were very lucky that it didn't escalate some nights and, get bad, as bad as it could be, where like you're waking up in the hospital or comas or being stabbed or stuff like that.
Yeah, no, there is no part of me that doesn't understand that a lot of us don't make it out of these situations. And I think the misconception is that we're really choosing this. And I think we don't. I don't think it was a choice. I think it was we got put into a situation, and you don't think people are going to be shitty humans. When you move in the world and you're like, I go with good intentions. So you assume other people have good intentions. If I love people purely, I assume that I'm going to get that same back. And when you're young and you don't understand that that's not the way the fuck the world works, you start kind of bargaining for your worthiness. And that's what I did a lot of. But there is a wounding that makes us choose men like that or women like that. And until we figure out what that wounding is and heal it, then we're going to keep doing it over and over again. Because I did it, and I'd meet great guys, and I was not a nice girl to them. I made it very difficult for them to love me or want to stay. And I think I did it on purpose.
But okay, so if you're a person that's looking for love, why would you intentionally self-sabotage just to prove to yourself that they aren't the ones, or you're now like in control? It's kind of like, well, if they're not going to act up, I'll act up to get them to act up. And if they don't act up, well, then they're done because I expected somebody to come after me.
Right. Yeah. I'm like stirring the pot just to see him swing. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't have an answer for that one. I think I look at some of the relationships that I had with guys that were really good guys, and there have been apologies to, I wasn't, I remember I had the guy that I was dating at the time when he actually passed away. I was such an aggressive personality, like very ready to fight at all times, just high alert at all times. And I remember the guy that I was in the relationship at the time, he said something to me about, I don't know what it was. And I literally just backhanded him, just full hand swing. And he grabbed my arm and he goes, "We don't do that." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, don't be a little bitch." Like, I'm literally pissed. And he was like, "I don't know why anytime you don't like what I say or something annoys you, you just," and I didn't realize I did it. And so I'm like, "Oh, so now I'm an abuser." That's fucking great. But that happens a lot. And it's reactionary abuse. It's where you are so sure of a pattern and you're so used to that being the way things are that it doesn't matter if the environment changes because you're still that way and you haven't really figured that part out. And that was not fun. I haven't been that was when that stopped. I really started therapy back. That was probably like 2007. Trying to figure that out back then. But yeah, it was wild.
Now, you talked about living with depression and anxiety. Is that after or during all this is going on, or?
I don't think I really was depressed or had anxiety back then. I know that I was in survival mode as a single mom, but I don't remember feeling like sad or depressed or being, I having had depression stints since then. I don't think that I ever was back then. But I also don't think that my nervous system was at peace either. So I definitely wasn't happy. I was stressed a lot, very high alert. But yeah, this anxiety and depression didn't happen till later.
Now, talk a little bit about suicidal thoughts and ideations. That's something that we talk a lot about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Now, has this ever been when you were younger at 25, or is this older?
No, I never had that lived experience. Once I found out that my birth father had committed suicide, I kind of always had this thought that it's my belief when people commit suicide is there's just a moment they just surrender to, like the thought just kind of wins and it just want it to be quiet. And that is the answer. And that was, it wasn't anybody, there's no way to know that that's true or not, but it's just the way I always kind of looked at it. And so I had never had been suicidal. Part of me thinks in some of those really dark seasons when I was really struggling as a single mom, my thought was, this is not an option. Then she has nobody. And who does she go to? So even if there would have been a part of me that was shifting into that space, I didn't have the luxury of being depressed. Like I had to take care of her. And the suicidal ideations didn't happen until last year. And it wasn't, I think I shared it on the panel. But I had gotten a neurological illness called trigeminal neuralgia. And what it does is it makes it feel like your face is getting tased like 30 to 40 times a day.
Wow.
It is. I had my daughter with pretty much no epidural, and this would buckle my knees. It was horrific. And so then it makes you crazy. Like it's like I couldn't work out. They're like, okay, we'll go on walks. But if you walked outside and the wind would hit my face, it would buckle me to my knees.
Wow.
Because it was so painful. And they couldn't figure out exactly why. And so they put me on a medication to help with the pain. And the pain was getting so bad that I kept having to take more. And it wasn't like an opiate that was like to numb me, but it was specifically for the nerve pain. And it made me suicidal. And it was a very quick shift. I was probably 2 weeks into the medication when I could tell the suicide hadn't come, but I was feeling very depressed, sleeping a lot, very sad, very emotional, crying a bunch. And I'm already an emotional person in general, but this didn't feel like that. And I didn't think it was suicidal ideations until I had dropped my son off at daycare. And I was driving back over the bridge, and I had the thought, I mean, if I went over the bridge, I could probably get out the window before I hit the water. And I'm like, who the fuck thinks shit like that? Like, I just was like, I mean, I had a good run. It's cool. Like, I literally was driving over the bridge back to Fredericksburg and had that thought. And I was like, oh, that's not normal. But I also had enough sense at that point that this was based upon medication, because this wasn't ever something that I'd ever thought of. I had never had moments where I'd wonder, what if I shot myself? What if I went out, they just had never crossed my mind. And so it was a really surreal feeling, because I knew what the root was. It wasn't me wanting to not be here. It was a medication that was making me have these feelings. And so I literally just stayed home. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to stay home. And I ended up going back to the doctor, told them I can't stay on this medication. I am literally absolutely fucking crazy. I was crying. And I ended up getting my medical marijuana license. And I was like, I'm just going to see if that'll help with the pain, so I don't have to be on this neurological medicine, because I can't be suicidal and take care of a special needs kid. Like, this is not going to work. And so she approved it right away. She was like, oh my gosh, trigeminal neuralgia. Like, that's so excruciatingly painful. The nurse practitioner was just kind of shocked. She's like, I'm surprised that you're like, you can just like sit here and hang out. And she says, no, approved, done. And that's how I mitigated the pain. And then probably within about 3 months, it went into dormant status. Some of the brain clarity started to come back as the medication started to dissipate. And I haven't had any episodes since then. Sometimes I'll get like, it's the same feeling, but much less painful. Almost like little shooting pains in my face, but it hasn't come back like it was. There's some nerve damage on one side of my face, or the other is a little bit droopy as a result. But it hasn't happened since. So I'm knock on wood that it doesn't, and that stays dormant, because I wouldn't have wished that on anybody. It was absolutely miserable.
We have a question, what was the medicine that you were
gabapentin, I think, is it?
That's what he said. He said, was the medicine called gabapentin?
Yeah, gabapentin. And it was, what did he say?
He said, I've been on it for nearly 20 years and it's ruined my life. It's a drug commonly used for what she's describing.
Yep. It was awful. And when I went to my neurologist, he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I told him, I was like, I can't stay on this. So I got on weed, and he was like, is it helping? And I was like, I'm not in pain. And he was like, well, okay, there's an answer. And if it comes back, they had this gamma knife procedure, which is like a laser to like kill the nerve. But then the more research I did is they could kill the nerve and then you still have it. So like get gamma knife surgery with a laser, go under anesthesia or whatever, and then you're going to have to do it again. And I was like, this is such bullshit. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, it's great that, people are able to identify that in a situation. Now, with the suicide thought, is it only that one time going off the bridge and you're like, whoa, this is pretty deep? Because like for my own experience, through, my own suicidal ideations and when I was younger, I I came up with a lot of different ways that I could do it, or like you would think about doing different things, or you would start to say like, oh well, maybe it's just better without me here, and
Oh
it's not
yeah.
just like this one time. Now, was there any other
Oh yeah.
times?
It was the most pressing thought on my mind for about 3 months.
Did you tell anybody about it, or
I
were
didn't
you
tell my
living it?
husband till probably a month and a half in. He had just started a new job, so he wasn't at the house. Our son had just gotten his ABA therapist, so she was starting to be at the house. Had she not been there, I fully think I probably would have just surrendered to it, to be honest with you. Having somebody else in the house who was there to take care of my son allowed me to be able to just stay in the room and try to breathe through whatever. But it was a very pressing thought. My daughter's grown. She takes care of herself. I'm like, she doesn't technically need me. My husband is the most amazing father. My son would be just fine if I wasn't here. And at the time when everything health wise was going down, I was within my business was hemorrhaging because I couldn't do what I was normally used to doing.
Mm.
I was a coach, so I was do healing work with women, and I couldn't do my fucking job. And so it was like, well, I'm going to have someone run a lot of these things so that I can actually kind of figure this out and get better. But I didn't know if I'd ever get better. I didn't know if this was going to get better. But yeah, no, it wasn't just a momentary thing. And it was stupid stuff. Like we live in a townhouse, and the second floor is up pretty high, where the balcony is. And I remember thinking, like, if I jumped down, I probably wouldn't be that hurt. Like, who would think, why would you want to jump off of a fucking,
Yeah, but the off chance that you live.
on the off chance that I live? Yeah. It was
Nice.
just weird shit that you just like, wow, weird, and stuff that I'd never thought about in my whole life. And so I don't know if those moments were, I'm trying to kill myself by jumping off our balcony. But I know that's not normal behavior. Like, I don't normally think that. So it was very weird.
Luke said he is happy for you. Weed has saved him from it as well, and it makes you feel like sad and depressed teenager, hyper emotional and tired. He said, "Thank you for sharing. It helps to know that I'm not alone."
Oh, I love that. No, I when I would tell people,
Thanks, Luke.
yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I felt like a crazy person when I was going through it. My husband actually is the one that figured out what it was before we went to the neurologist. And it's just wild shit. Like, it's not common at all. And they didn't really know why. I don't know if that for Luke, if they had told him where they think it came from, but I had an illness in high school that was a side effect of an acne medication I took in high school that made my body think I had a brain tumor. So it shut off one half of my face, like my eye crossed. I couldn't speak. I lost a bunch of weight. I was throwing up all the time. And so they don't know if those are connected or if it was just kind of something random that happened to me. But yeah, it was, not fun. Not fun.
Now, how do you tell somebody you love that you want to kill yourself?
I just like that. I said, I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, this is how I'm feeling. This is where my business is at. This is the value that I think I do not have in a general consensus. And I don't really know what to do. And I don't know what he said right away, but I knew once I said it, I was going to be okay. And I don't know why I thought that, other than the fact that he's been the safest place I've ever had in my life. But I think it was that I told him how bad it was, because he knew I've gone through different points of depression, and I had past postpartum depression after we lost our first baby, Rainbow, at 16 weeks. And then when we got Squish's heart diagnosis at 20 weeks gestation, like, that sent me into tailspin again. So it wasn't, not for nothing, but he navigated mental health things with me at different points anyway. This was just another level. And I think the thing that was the gift is that I knew this was from the medication. This wasn't my desire not to be here. This was making me change a belief system that I had. And I just needed to weather the storm and get off of it. Cause I knew if I stay on this, it's not going to get better. This is going to be what it is. And so you're not supposed to go cold turkey, but I did. I just stopped taking it. Did a detox, and then got my medical marijuana license, and I haven't needed medicine for any of it since.
Yeah, no, I love cannabis.
No,
I honestly believe cannabis is the future, because it has no side effects. There's tons of ways to take it. So if you don't want to smoke it, you can, do RSO, you can do tinctures, you can vape it. And when it comes to mental health, I think a lot of people, when I talked to a lot of addicts, and one of the conversations I had with one of the addicts, or I like to say users, not addicts, was the fact that she got off meth, and she said that, I wanted to be sober, but I still wanted to have something that allowed me to feel. And cannabis allows her to be sober and allows her to feel. And I think as we move towards it, you're going to see a lot of people in the future turn to cannabis like they have for PTSD, trauma, depression, anxiety, using, and it's the ability that it really helps people turn away from whatever they're doing. When you can get someone to choose their family or their life over heroin, and they choose the joint with time spent with their family, like you couldn't pay somebody enough in an active addict situation for them to make a decision like that.
Yeah.
But what changes? So I'm a big proponent of cannabis.
No, yeah. I didn't know what else to do. And I texted a girlfriend that worked in the cannabis space for many years. And I was like, here's what I'm dealing with. And when I told her what the medicine they put me on, she was like, you don't want to be on that long term. It will fuck up your kidneys. And I was like, oh, that's great. So I'll have kidney failure on top of my face getting tased 40 times a day. It wasn't optional to stay on it, because I just knew this was not going to go well. And so when I got on my medical marijuana card, I was like, it was peaceful. I was like, my face doesn't hurt, and I'm not grumpy. I'm not anxious. I'm not depressed. I'm not having weird fucked up thoughts. Yeah, it was crazy.
Now with you, do you do indica, sativa? Like, how do you choose your medicine?
I basically go in and I'm like, okay, this week I'm working on this. This is how I need to feel. And they just give me whatever it is. I was like, okay. Cause I don't know enough of like what's supposed to do what. And I just kind of tell them what I'm needing. And then they just give me what they think is best. And so far it's been great. From a pain perspective, I haven't had any pain, and I think I have to do my renewal in like October, November.
Interesting.
It's been almost a year.
Now with that, is it like straight cannabis? Is it vapes? Do you do like oils?
Vapes or edibles.
Vapes or edibles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now do you do what is it? Distillate, or do you hash rosin carts? Like,
it's the distillate.
Okay.
A little like the cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got to try live resin or hash rosin sometime.
Okay.
The cart's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it. Oh, look at that. We have 7 minutes, and then we have a 5-minute break, everybody. So when we get back and we can start talking this now, is losing your first child.
Mm-hmm.
And you said the child's name would have been Rainbow.
That's what we call him. I don't know. It was a boy, and we call him Rainbow because we had his brother literally a year to the day after he passed away.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you. That was a hole to climb out of. I wasn't suicidal then, but I was definitely. I ended up getting on antidepressants because my husband had was going. We were talking about this past week. He was going to a board meeting retreat somewhere out of town, and we're usually together. Like if I'm usually the one that travels, he's not the traveler. And he was going to leave for that, and I was on the way to drop him off, and I couldn't stop crying. Like I physically was like, I don't know why I'm still crying. Like I'm not that codependent. Like this is not, I can't turn them off. And he was like, you should probably call your therapist. And I was like, okay. And I'm getting on antidepressants. And I was on those through my son's second surgery.
Now, how old was the child when you lost him?
16 weeks.
16 weeks.
Yeah. We'd already done like the Facebook announcement. My daughter did pictures about being a big sister. And I'm active enough on social media that once we made the announcement, where's their Amazon list, sending me, because I love all the girly sparkly things.
What I should have done is I should have passed out an Amazon list.
See? And I had people sending me, gift cards and buy this, and I'm going to get the baby this. And so I had to tell everybody that that was just not my experience. And then we ended up doing a couple of episodes on Resilient Heart when I went live, talking about those stories specifically. Both my story, one with a doula girlfriend who had had several miscarriages, and then my husband and I talked about what it was like to go through it as a couple. Because the night before it happened, we had couples therapy the very next day, which was very, very helpful. Our therapist was amazing and really helping us navigate our grief, but also mitigating the grief of others. Because when you tell people you lost your baby, sometimes you end up consoling them about how they feel about you losing your baby instead of you getting to just say you lost your baby and have your feelings. And so he helped us navigate a lot of those conversations, because that was definitely new, unfamiliar, unhappy territory to be in.
Yeah, that could be. I could definitely see that as they internalize it from their perspective, and so it could be frustrating.
Yeah,
because it's like, well, you didn't really lose the baby.
Yeah,
and now you have feelings on and thoughts about how I lost my baby. And
yeah.
what does that do?
It really put me into a feeling like I had to comfort other people, and I got, but on the flip side, and it was really because of my podcast, I hadn't shared about that much until my podcast, and the messages that I got from other women that I've been friends with for years and years, that had also gone through losses, that had never had anybody talk about it or been able to open those conversations, where I had tons and tons of DMs from women. And I got a lot of DMs from women that had the episode with my husband. They listened to it with their husbands. And then they were like, we had like the most productive therapy session, because he got to hear what it was like for another guy to go through this, and he'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I know exactly what he means. I was feeling like that too. And then they would take that to therapy. And so I think that's why one of the reasons I love podcasting so much, but I wanted to share kind of all the aspects of it, not just my perception of it. And my husband's he's an analytical person, and I'm a very emotional person. So it's, opposites attract. So trying to figure out how to grieve together was rough.
Now, was there any like premonition? Like, did you ever have dreams about losing your baby or anything like that?
Yeah. The thing that and I'm still trying to kind of, I'm never great at explaining this part, but I knew to some level that this wasn't going to work. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I didn't know if I would have the baby and the baby would pass, or that I don't know that I thought I would actually lose the baby. But I remember that morning specifically that I actually ended up losing Rainbow that evening. I got up and I was just like, I don't feel right today. And I had made plans to make dinner for us. I had gotten all the things, and I love cooking. So there wasn't a deviation from my normal schedule. And I was like, oh, I'm going to cook dinner and clean the house. And I wasn't working at the time. So my husband was at the office. And when I texted him, when he was getting ready to come home, I was like, just pick up Chinese. I was like, I don't feel well. And so I was like, I'm just going to go and lay back down. And so I had gone downstairs to take a shower, because we had one of those little seats in the shower in that bathroom, so I could just sit in the water. And I remember just that day I had just had my hands on my stomach, and I was like, all you got to do is grow, buddy. Like, we're just hanging out. We can't wait to love you. Like, you just got to keep growing. And I don't know, I'd never talked to him like that before. But I think that's when I knew that something was wrong. I ended up downloading an app where it's supposed to let you hear heartbeat or whatever, which, is not probably it. I didn't hear anything. And I don't know if he had already passed at that point. But my husband came home. I had a couple of bites of food, and I was like, I'm going to go back and lay down. And I went back and laid down. Within 15 minutes, I just was up and rushed, and he came out in the toilet, unfortunately. And then he rushed me to the hospital, and I didn't know that's what happened. I knew that there was a lot of blood. And I remember thinking, I don't think a baby could survive this much blood loss at this point, because it felt like a murder scene. Like, I was like, there's so much blood. And when we got to the hospital, they brought us right in, got me a wheelchair, because I couldn't really walk very well. So I had basically put like paper towels in my pants to try to so I wasn't bleeding on myself. And it was not, it was as traumatic as people probably think it is, where you're just like, I was there. The anger hadn't set in at that point, because given what about my previous experience having a baby with a nightmare, I did all the right things this time. I have a wonderful husband. He has a good job. We bought a house, like, all of those boxes that you're supposed to check. And I was like, what the fuck? I was really, really angry when it all went down, because I was like, I have spent all my life being shamed for being a single mother. And then I do the right thing and I get married and I'm happy and he's amazing. And then you don't even let me keep my baby. So part of that was pissed off at God. Part of it was pissed off at what I thought was supposed to have. And it didn't work out that way. And I lost him on the 20th of March, and Squish was born on March 21st the next year.
Is Squish his real name?
No, that's
name.
his alias. Yeah, that's his alias. I don't ever put my baby's real names on social media, but yeah, then Squish is way cuter. So
what's going on here with my connection? Swear to God, Facebook irritates me sometimes. Screw you, Facebook. So when that happens, like, what are your thoughts? Is it more anger? Is it more sadness? Is it more like you feel like you got gypped? Like,
I would think it was all of the above, and I think I couldn't in the beginning really kind of discern or piece out what my emotions were, but I know the most present was rage. That I was really excited to have a baby with someone that I loved, who loved me and who treated me well. I felt cheated. I felt it was kind of a ball of emotion. And that day at the hospital, so they ended up having to take me to go get an ultrasound to like determine for sure whether or not I actually physically had lost the sac of the baby. And so she did the ultrasound, and then the woman that came in to check the test results was very visibly pregnant. And I was like, oh, so this is like my own private hell. Like, I'm literally knowing in real time, because the lady did not have a poker face. I knew at that point that the baby was gone. And then I get to watch. So I don't get to keep my baby, but she gets to keep her baby. And I was pissed. I was very, very, very pissed.
You could like point the finger at one thing or person or whatever. Who were you the most mad at that time?
I was mad at God.
Why do you feel like God had to do anything with it versus like biology or just?
I don't know. I think I needed someone to blame that I felt like I could yell at, and that seemed like the best answer. Because I knew I had been careful. It wasn't, there was no behaviors or lack of taking care of the situation that would have left from a negligent standpoint. And so I was pissed at God, because at that point my faith was a little different than it is now. And yeah, I was very, very, very pissed.
What are some things you would say?
I don't remember what I would say. I just remember yelling, a lot of yelling, and feeling like I was, like I said, I was checking all the boxes. I was doing all the right things. How come this is my life? How come I don't get to keep my baby? Or you've got, I came from adoption, and then you see people that are just out here having babies that don't care, don't want them. And here we are, like, ready to welcome a baby, and we don't get to do that. I don't know if there was anything specific that I remember saying. I just remember being really angry.
Now I would definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Well, we are at our mark. I'm going to do right my next segment when we get back. We will be back here in 5 minutes, everybody. So grab a drink, and we will be right back.
When I get low, there's somewhere I like to go, out walking with my shadow and my garden friend. Oh, Yahweh, I know you got me in hand. Though I am tired, you help me stand. But will I be okay?
What's up, guys? If you're enjoying this episode, then you're going to enjoy our gold sponsor, which is Dry Flower, the original hang harvesting system. If you've ever ruined your flower post-chop or lost your terps to a bad dry, it's time to upgrade. Dry flower makes the full plant hang drying effortless with tools like their drying arms, the rack systems, and the Cannabis Guardian nets, giving you consistent airflow, zero flat spots, and maximum preservation of your strain's full aroma and structure. Built by growers for growers, Dry Flower helps you cure like a king. Our silver sponsor, Current Culture, the gold standard in deep water culture hydroponics. These systems are designed to deliver explosive roots, growth, and nutrient uptake through consistent water circulation and oxidization. Whether you're in a 4-site system for a home setup or a 100-light commercial facility, their undercurrent system and plug-and-play designs make your grow cleaner, faster, and more productive. Precision growing starts at the roots, and that's where Current Culture shines. Legendary Leafies is on a mission to support veterans and break the stigma around cannabis. Through their unique cannabis-themed trading cards, they highlight the plant's therapeutic potential, especially though for those that are battling PTSD and anxiety. Legendary Leafies blends education with empowerment, helping veterans and others feel proud and not ashamed of their mental health journey.
When I get low, there's somewhere I like to go. Out walking with my shell.
What's going on, guys? It is Madman Plant, and we are back here on the Bring Gabby. Go, Yoda. Bam. And bringing my lower screen. See, we have the bottom where we see both of us, and then the top.
Where we go?
Yeah, it looks great. All right, so for the break, we had just finished up with the conversation of losing your first child. What I wrote down before we broke was time heals.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it doesn't take away the pain, but it heals you enough to keep you moving forward.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about from the loss and the sadness and all of the things. How does somebody like that move forward?
The first thing I ended up doing, and it's part of the reason why I ended up getting my Reiki certification, was I had a local girlfriend. It was shortly after I had our son. And I don't think he'd had a heart surgery yet. He had his first one at 3 weeks, and this was right after. But I had gone to lunch with her, and she's like, let's go to this woo-woo shop downtown in Richmond. And there was a Reiki healer that was there. And he basically pinpointed that I was holding on to a soul that had left, and and it was causing a heaviness in my body. And I don't remember exactly what he did or what happened, but I just remember leaving and feeling like the elephant that had felt like it was on my chest since the night I lost that baby was gone. I felt better. I was sleeping better. It did that loss. Unfortunately, it also kind of cracked open all the intuitive things. So I'd always been a medium. I'd always been very intuitive, very reading emotions and knowing things about people that I have no business knowing, just meeting them and they're telling me things. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that. Like it's some weird stuff. So that loss is really what kind of felt like it broke all of that open. And then I had gotten to Reiki, breath work, and hypnosis, and was really just trying to understand where I was at. Some of it was trying to figure out the abuse that I had been through. Some of it was trying to figure out kind of me as a person, who I was now that I was married and had a baby, kind of just figuring it all out. And so I kind of that was where it began. It was like, I'm going to basically break it all down to the bones and figure it out and rebuild myself. And that's when I started that process. And that was, he was maybe 3 weeks old to a month old, that first session that I had.
And then for everybody, what is Reiki?
It's basically energy healing. That's the easiest way I can explain it. And I don't, because now I do Reiki and hypnosis, it almost ends up feeling kind of like a hybrid session in between those two. But it's really interesting doing a Reiki session for somebody and feeling, as you're scanning their body and as you're spending time with them, you can feel where the heaviness is within their body. I haven't done a Reiki session. I did a virtual one for a client just the other night, but I don't do them very often anymore, just because the podcast studios and everything like that is just taking too much time. And I have to have created the capacity for those drop-ins and for those gifts to really do their best for me to be my best in it. And right now I just don't have the capacity for it. So let's not do that until we can do it well.
Well, that's actually in my new course for Vindec, in one of the modules, it actually talks about your energy wasters and gainers, and the ability to say yes and no to things that take your energy and that give you energy. So in a way, that definitely follows suit with everything that you're going through. I think the one thing is clarity, and knowing where you truly are and what you can and can't do. And sometimes you want to be in positions where you can do more, but you got to kind of be real with yourself and where you are if you really want to feel better and change and everything like that.
Yeah. And it's in the application. I think a lot of people can get stuck in the doing of healing instead of the settling in it. I talked about it on the panel, like the creating the stillness. Like if you're constantly feeding your brain more questions and more deep dives and more sessions, like then I feel like, and this doesn't happen to everybody, but for me, it always felt like when I would do that, I would kind of get in the spiral and there was just zero clarity. My brain was mucky. I was crying.
Yes.
I'm just journaling and nothing is really making sense. It's all just kind of a mess. So I think you have to do some work and then pause and kind of let it settle in, and allow yourself time to be tested in those things that you're learning to grow out of or do differently. Because if you just stay in the healing process and you don't ever put it into application, then I feel like you're kind of wasting your own time. And that's just kind of my take on that. And
Well, I couldn't agree more. And also, too, it has the state of depression where, like, for instance, like in my own realm of dealing with mental health and stuff, I like, for example, I have tons of games on my computer, and I used to play my games all the time and really enjoy them. But now I sit in front of the computer. It was just, and I've been, and that's why part of this platform exists, because I'm actually working on healing myself while helping healing other people.
yeah,
And, one of the things is you'll sit in front of the computer and you'll just be like, I just got nothing, you know what I mean? And you just feel stuck and you just feel unmotivated and you feel tired. I've also been, extremely tired lately. And I think one of the things too is I think one, it's like a season. So, happiness, in my opinion, isn't a constant state. It's not a destination. It's something that we create, but it's something that comes and goes. We create the happiness. It doesn't just you don't just go into a world of happy.
right.
You know what I mean? And with that being said, I think a lot of times we expect certain things to make us happy, but when you deal with true depression or situations like yours, that's not the reality. The reality is depression is very real and it will take all your happiness away, even if you are the most happiest person. And I think that's why a lot of healing is done through self, not just the fact that I'm going to make better decisions or I'm going to eat better. It's the constant choice to want to get better, because you want to get back. They even said that, a lot of us are operating on like the half percentage of what we could be operating on because of life, the foods,
Beliefs,
yeah,
trauma.
exactly.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah. I agree. I do. I think we talked about entrepreneurship on the panel, and I think at every level and every different point, at every opportunity, every shift, there's a new lesson that usually comes with a wounding that you have to figure out. Because if you don't figure out those woundings, you really will self-sabotage. You'll stop yourself. You won't put yourself in that mix. You'll avoid something that's actually for your benefit because you're not sure that you deserve it. And I think it's a constant process. Even 6 years later, I'm doing that work all the time. It feels like, but I'm walking myself through it in a quicker pace now. Before, it would take me much longer to figure it out and walk through it. Now I guess that's the silver lining, is it takes less time to figure it out now than it used to.
Well, I think with education and the sole desire to be better, understanding that it's kind of like, I always kind of relate mental health to like a war zone, which I've never been in the military, but I played enough war games to have an idea of what it might be like. And the concept of this is, if you stay in one place too long, you're going to die. And whether that's self-inflicted, whether that's on a battlefield, whether that's you stop progressing as a human, like a failure to launch type thing.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing is you just got to keep moving, whether it's like an inch or a mile or whatever it is. The perpetual cycle of moving forward is the constant, you know what I mean? The medium is like, what happens and how you balance it. But I really believe one of the things that I've been able to really focus on is the fact that, okay, I'm not anywhere where I want to be right now, but it all ends if I stop tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, either I keep walking down this road, or what am I going to really do? And just like you, I have a family, I have a kid. I don't have time to just stop. So what do we do to build that energy, to build that confidence, to say, you know what, I'm not an imposter. I can get out there and I can make this happen. And I think a lot of it is what you've already exhibited, which is that self-healing, and I think that's what we neglect. It's like, oh, well, I'll just do this and this will make me a better person, or this will make things better. But it's like we forget about
No, if you're not
all
good,
this.
it's you're building something on a shitty foundation. And I think when you do that, and we all go through struggles, there's no, I don't think there's an end game of like, oh, you get to a certain point, you're like, and I have leveled up and I am no longer healing anything.
I am not like the rest of you.
Yeah, like, oh, you minions, I'm fucking better than that. No, but I do think there is a gradual process in it that you have to get into implementation and choosing joy and choosing happiness and choosing people around you that will make that amplify that. Because I think sometimes it's because you hang out with assholes and then you become unhappy and unsuccessful because the people around you are not doing anything for themselves. And so you just can kind of get swallowed up into environments. And when you heal, you figure out where you're supposed to be. And then you just have to keep moving your feet.
No, I totally agree with that, and you made a good point. It's your circle. You know, there's 3 cardinal rules that I heard from an actor on a YouTube video or TikTok video or whatever. And the first cardinal rule is only walk into rooms where people light up when they see you. Number
That's one
2,
of my favorite quotes.
Yep. Number 2 is the fastest way to be where you want to be is slowly. And number 3, the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next. So keep climbing.
Yeah. No, I think all of those are true. And I do think it just, I don't, maybe it gets easier. I don't know if it does or it doesn't. But I think you just end up getting a little bit stronger and it makes it easier for you as you kind of grow your own strength.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it ever gets easier. I think just like becoming a business owner, at first you don't even know how to make an invoice or a document, and then all of a sudden 10 years down the road, you know, you do this all the time, and it's really a learned language. It's kind of like you know, you ever seen the movie or TV show Walking Dead?
I did.
Okay, remember like when they kill their first zombie and they're all freaked out and they're all like disgusted by it because they've never killed a zombie before, and then like season or 8 or 9 they're like shoop, shoop, and then or they'll just like come over and just whack them and keep walking.
Right.
You know, it's that learned behavior to understand that I can do this, that I am in charge, you know, and it's interesting, but it's like killing your first zombie.
No, it is. And I think if you're surrounded by people that are also killing their own zombies along the way, then you end up having a circle that you can lean on because they're doing that same work. And I think when you end up looking around and maybe the people that you're around, you don't feel anything like, it's time to really figure out where you want to go that you're not currently at, where you need to be to hang out with the people and be in environments with people that you want to grow into and that you want to be around.
Yeah. And it's okay to also understand too, that not everybody's going to see the value or be excited for what you think is great, or even think what you think is great.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of times there's also an acceptance of accepting that some people with some situations are not going to be what we thought or what we wanted them to be or what they thought they would represent. And I think a lot of times we hold on, and I've been victim to this too, is you hold on to this thought that this person or this situation is designed for me. Like this is supposed to be happening, and it's not. You know, I heard somewhere that the true happiness to life is where you remove total expectation of what you think a moment should represent. So
yeah, I do. I had that thought today on the way here. I have an opportunity. I'll be in I have a 6-page spread in a book that's coming out, and it's all female entrepreneurs. I probably have the smallest business of all of the women that I'm in the book with. And hi, honey.
That's actually a great thing.
But
that you're around even more powerful people.
But 2 years ago, if I'd have gotten this opportunity, I would have left them on red. I would have made an excuse not to respond. I would have pretended like I didn't see it. So that the timeline would pass, and I wouldn't be like I didn't say I didn't want to do it, and I just missed the deadline. So I would have purposely sabotaged this opportunity. Now I'm like, I get to meet all these people. I get to be at the launch. My picture will be on Times Square. I don't know that I deserve it, but I'm fucking here for it. And I just, because the way I look at it is there is somebody who's just a couple steps behind me, or maybe we're neck and neck and they're thinking I'm ahead of them. and people see this, and I just want people to see it and go, I don't have a huge social footprint. I don't have, you know, 1 million followers on TikTok and all this, and I'm going to be on a Times Square billboard. And so I think if I would have thought more about how it had to look, then I would have sabotaged myself, because I think it needed to look different. And I think we all do that in some capacity. If like this business opportunity or this opportunity doesn't look how we think it should, sometimes we sabotage it. We make it harder for ourselves when the gift sometimes just looks a little different. The package is different than we thought it was going to come in. And it doesn't mean it's not still a gift. So it's figuring that part out.
I couldn't agree with you more, especially like with my platform. We rely a lot on sponsorship and, you know, partnerships and working with people. And I will be the exact same way. It's like Lacey was like, did you email them? And I'm like, no, I didn't email them yet. And she's like, why didn't you email them? Like, you wanted to work with them. And it's just like, whether it's imposter syndrome or you just don't feel like you'll be taken seriously, or, you know, you feel some type of way. And I think the biggest things is not reality, it's what we think.
Yeah.
And how that really is our main roadblock. And with Vindec EU, you know, the whole platform is designed to really, you know, mirror yourself and realize that, you know, I heal is what it stands for, is I heal. You know, the world can't heal me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about your heart condition and autism. My son has autism. Now, Logan, as you saw in there, he's more on the high functioning side.
Okay.
His autism really relies around on sensory.
Okay.
So like, let's say like if we wanted him to wash his hair, we'd have to let him know like at least a couple of days in advance that, hey, on this date, you're going to be washing your hair or taking a bath, or, you know, just different things. Now, your son is a little bit more on the spectrum, correct?
Yeah. So he was diagnosed with tricuspid atresia when I was 20 weeks gestation.
And what is that?
That basically means he's got a single ventricle. So instead of having, we have 2 ventricles in our heart, he has 1.
Okay.
So he's had a series of surgeries. One was to restrict blood flow because he was getting too much when he was born.
Oh, wow.
The second one was to reroute for his upper body. So basically the blue and the red blood mix in a way that they're not supposed to, because there's not the chambers like what the rest of us have. And so his surgeries were done, one to help the blood flow on the upper side of his body, because you can see pictures of him. And I was very strategic because I didn't want people up in our business where I would put filters and kind of make it. So he would always have kind of purpley blue lips. And it became kind of the norm for us. And it's just based upon the way that his body kind of functions. And then the third surgery was for the lower part of his body to help the circulation. And so he will always have a heart condition unless he gets a brand new heart that's perfect. And then he had his last heart surgery in January of 2023. And then we got his autism diagnosis in 2023 as well, about 6 months later.
Now, when your son was born, what was the pregnancy like as far as giving birth? Was it normal? Like, what happened with all that?
So pretty much as soon as they got so we went and did like the anatomy scan, because I'm gestational, I was a geriatric pregnancy, because I was 39 when I was pregnant, and full anatomy scan at 20 weeks to just look at all of the things. And so the anatomy scan that we went to, the doctor said, there's something I can't see in his heart. And I don't know if it's because he's not moving properly, you know, because he was being stubborn. I was like, oh, he's my kid. It's probably going to be doing. And so he said, I want you guys to go actually see a specialist. They have better EKG. Here's the number, set it up, whatever. So we actually we went to pediatric cardiologist. They did an ultrasound, and that's when they found out that he was missing that ventricle. And there's a valve that's in there that he didn't have. And I don't remember that conversation, honestly. I remember him coming up, and I had just gotten home from New Mexico from visiting my daughter, and she was going through paramedics or EMT school. And so she had the heart, a diagram of the heart. And I remember thinking when I sat down in that room, the picture that I remember her working on her homework at the kitchen table at my parents' house was not the picture that I was looking at that he had put on the table to discuss my
Interesting.
son's
Wow.
heart. And I literally it was in a very close proximity. So it occurred to me in that moment. And then I just tell everybody else, it kind of was like Charlie Brown, where all the letters are just above and it's like, meh, 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 like that's all I heard. And I just remember crying the entire time because I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if I was going to lose another baby. And like, we're 20 weeks. He has a name. I love him. I talk to him all the time. He was very active and very he was dancing all the time in utero. And I was just like, this can't happen again. And luckily my husband was with me for that appointment. So he was able to glean all the information that we essentially needed initially. And then his pediatric cardiologist, we were leaving, gave me his card and he's like, only go to these 2 sites. Don't doom scroll. Go to these 2 sites. These are what you want to look up. If you have additional questions, here's my card and you can call me. And it was the first time in my entire life of 40 years of a doctor saying, here's my number and you can call me, and thinking he's going to answer or he's going to actually talk to me. And so we went home. I absolutely fell to pieces, wrote down and did a bunch of research and had a million questions. And then I called back up to the office and he spent an hour and a half on the phone with me asking me questions. And I cried through most of it. And we had him until he retired. But the team that has taken care of our son from diagnosis through his surgeries and even his care now, I can't say enough good things. I could call anybody on his team. There was one night he had gotten home. He had just one of his surgeries, and I had was changing a diaper, and I took his little footsie jammies off, and his feet were purple like this, like Barney purple.
Wow.
And my daughter's an EMT, and I looked at her and I showed her, and she goes, "We need to call 911." And I was like, well, let's just take him. Like, we'll just go because it's going to take him longer to get here than if we haul ass to get to the hospital. And he had what was called a hypothermia stent, which basically meant like he got what would be like the equivalent of like a chill that we would normally get. But because the blood flow in his body was still regulating from the surgery, it basically put him into hypothermia so that it would protect his heart, and all his extremities were purple. And so they had to, they did run a whole series of tests, and that was probably one of the more traumatic pediatric ER visits. And so it was a lot of that for several years. I mean, he had a lot of inpatient stays. He had surgeries. Normal colds and flus would make him very, very sick until this last surgery that he had in 2023. And so we were home. Like I joke that I go out in public now and I'm like, don't be awkward because you've been at your house for years and years and years. And so it was a very rough ride. Rough.
So going back to what we were talking about before, what was your conversation like with God then?
There was a peacefulness to me. So around the time that so this is kind of where all the woo-woo stuff I felt like started to kind of take hold for me. So we had our appointment when I went home to New Mexico. My Aunt Rita was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and it was very terminal.
Mm-hmm.
And so the conversation was, if you would like to see her, I would get on the plane tomorrow. And from diagnosis to when she passed was 10 days. So it was very quick. And
Wow.
when I went and sat with her just by myself, she was saying prayers that didn't really make sense to me. And I didn't know if it was because she was passing away and she was a little like delulu at that point, just kind of not as of yourself as you're normally. But she kept saying it, just know that no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay, Aretha, that sounds good. Like, I just was kind of like, thank you so much, because there was nothing happening at the time. We were pregnant. I had at that point no issues. They had uploaded the portal, his gender, because they had done the test before I left, and I didn't think anything of it. And I feel like when he got his heart diagnosis, and through that, there was always fear. I mean, you hand your baby over to people and like, please be the best day you've ever had in your job. Like every single one of you that's taking my baby. And there's a surrender that has to happen that I think I wasn't angry at God. There was a belief that he was going to be okay. And I don't know where it came from. It was just something that I knew.
But you just didn't believe that God would do that to you twice?
Probably there was some of that, but I also felt like because things had kind of broken up open for me in terms of the mediumship side of things. I talked to my grandpa a lot. I talked to my Uncle Ralph, who passed away, quite a bit. And so I just kind of felt like we had some people pulling up there to make sure that he was going to be okay. And he was.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so it worked out.
Now, what's quality of life today?
You wouldn't know if you saw him that he has a heart condition at all. Even his heart scar, he's got, so the last one was the most extensive, was usually takes the longest to heal from. So his first heart surgery, he's ready to go home in 3 days. His second one, 3 days.
Wow.
The third one, they told us 4 to 6 weeks. He should be inpatient.
That's what I would be thinking.
7 days, he was ready to go home. I was like, and I call him like baby Wolverine. Like he is resilient in a way that I don't even know is of this world. Like his diagnosis, he should be living a different life. And they don't really know if the autism is true autism or if it's just developmental delays, because he had 8 or 9 different going under anesthesia. And if that's created some of the delays that he's experiencing, we don't really know. We got the diagnosis so that we would have the resources to be able to do anything possible to help him, and give him everything that we possibly could, and just kind of get to ride the storm with him. But he's the happiest kid. He wakes up in the morning just ready to fuck shit up. Like he's just like, well, let's go. Like, good morning. And I think there's something wrong with you if you wake up in the morning not happy when you see somebody that wakes up that happy every morning. And I don't know that I think he knows everything that he's gone through because he was so little for most of it. But if he can have walked through that many storms at his young age and wake up so happy, like I have zero reason to not wake up with gratitude and joy, because he is resilient. He is so resilient.
Now, he's your only child, right?
No, I have a daughter who's 25.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You did say that. Now, she was fine though. Nothing wrong with her. Everything.
No, she had a heart irregularity, like a heartbeat irregularity when she was like in middle school. But there wasn't anything that they found that was significant. Her father had some heart issues. So I don't know genetically if there was something there for that, but she's healthy as can be. And I don't have any heart conditions, and neither does my husband. So we don't really know. It's just, sometimes that just happens to babies. And it's like 1 in every 100 babies has some sort of heart condition. We were just really lucky that his wasn't a terminal diagnosis, because a lot of heart babies didn't, even with his heart condition until more recently, have lived full, beautiful lives. So he'll have, hopefully, knock on wood, he won't need any more surgeries.
Fantastic.
Unless he needs a liver transplant, because the last series of surgeries change the pressures within his body, and that can sometimes cause deterioration in his liver. And so we start seeing a liver specialist at 12, and then they monitor his liver enzymes and a bunch of different things. And that would be the only thing that they anticipate that he'll need.
That's really great. I'm just so glad that worked out. I would be so devastated if you had to go through the exact same thing.
Yeah,
but
that was definitely a fear for sure.
But maybe, and I hate to say it, but maybe everything truly does happen for a reason.
There's it's interesting that you say that, because when I lost Rainbow, I was really, really sick. So I hadn't been pregnant. I mean, my she was 19. So I have not been pregnant in a bazillion years. So my husband said, he's like, maybe your body's just trying to figure out how to do this again. Like, it's been a long time. But after I had lost the baby, I had gotten a blood clot in my leg, because if I would get up and move around, I would throw up. Whatever that throw up illness is when you're pregnant. I can't think of the name of the word.
Pregnancy.
Yeah. No. There's like it's like a specific, that too. But there's a specific illness for pregnant women that makes you like projectile sickness. Like you just are sick to a next level. It's like morning sickness that does not ever end. And I think that I had that. So I would get up, brush my teeth, and make me throw up. I'd eat breakfast, brush my teeth, and throw up. Like I was throwing up all the time. And so it got to where I was just like, I'm just going to lay in the bed and watch Law and Order. Like, I'm just like, I can't do anything else. I get up and move around, and I get sick every time. And so because I was so sedentary, I ended up getting a blood clot in my leg. And they think that might've been actually part of what caused the pregnancy loss. But the first doctor that I went to after the pregnancy loss, she was very nonchalant about it. She's like, babies die. It's just what it is. Like literally how she's telling me. And I'm literally holding myself together by shreds the day after I lost my baby, and she's making it like it's no big deal, and I'm not happy. And I told my husband when we got in the car, I was like, I don't have an issue with her, but I don't think that's who I want to be my caretaker.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I was like, I'm going to start searching for a doctor. And I had never had a male OBGYN. For some reason, I found this one, and I was like, I feel like that's who I'm supposed to go to. And it was just, I felt like there was this just kind of intuition moments along the way. And when I went to that meeting, I had bought tickets to, what's his name? He does the song with Napoleon Dynamite. He's always travels in the UK. He's my husband's favorite singer. He's usually only overseas, and so I'd gotten tickets for us to go see him in New York.
Very cool.
And so I was like, but I want to go to the doctor and make sure the baby's okay before we go. And so I went to this doctor. And I told him, I was like, let's see this doctor, see what I think about him, and then I'll decide if I want to find someone else when we get back from Vegas or from New York. And he was wonderful. And he's like, I'm going to be honest. He says, I think we should put you on blood thinners starting immediately. He said, you had a blood clot. It's conservative, but I feel like it's a good decision. And that decision is what saved Rainbow's life, because what happens a lot of times with heart conditions for children in utero when you don't know, which most people don't know that early anyway, is they don't get sufficient blood flow. So while he has the issues with his heart, all his veins, all his arteries in his veins are not smaller than they should be, because he had more than adequate blood flow because I was on blood thinners. So it thinned my blood enough so that his body grew properly. So he didn't have liver, kidney, lung, any of the other issues that you often see with kids with his diagnosis, because of that decision. Wow. And so had I not lost Rainbow and had been the blood clot and all of that, and the new doctor, had I not been put on blood thinners, I don't know how well he would be doing from a physical standpoint, from his health perspective, because there's a lot of other things that can go wrong when they don't get adequate blood flow in utero. And a lot of it is developmental. So it's lungs and different major organs that just have issues. And he doesn't have any of that, which is such a blessing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's like really cool.
Yeah.
It's weird how science plays a role into that. And they like, one tragedy could be a miracle. And
yeah. And he talks to Rainbow like this. We refer to his big brother as Rainbow. And the night before his last surgery, I was just, it's just a lot to hand your kid over. And so it's a mind fuck for the days leading up to it. And the night before we're heading down to the hospital, I was like, I'm going to, snuggle him and put him to bed. And I told him, I was like, where's Rainbow, buddy? And he just went like this and put his hand over his heart, and he just looked at me, and I was like, he's going to be fine. I don't know why I know it, but he wasn't verbal at the time pretty much at all. But he knew exactly what I said, and he put his hand on his heart, and I was like, okay, we got this, and we're okay. So it's worked out. I mean, it's been tough, but he could be in a completely different situation, and we're so blessed that he's doing so well.
Well, I'm really happy. Like, what an amazing journey. I mean, from like tragedy to triumph, literally.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So, like, with this, now he's verbal and talking.
He's talking a lot more. So he got an ABA therapist working with him 40 hours a week in May of last year. Okay. So because I work from home, and it allowed the ability to literally just load up everything that we could do as far as what they would approve. And so he's had that since May. We made a communication device for him. We basically got an iPad offline and then bought a communication device called Proloquo to help him communicate. But he's probably, a year ago, he had 5 words, 7 words, maybe. Now he's probably 70, 100 words that he knows. He will do like short sentences like, I want iPad, I want this, I want. And the communication device, that you push the button and say like cinnamon roll. So boom, cinnamon roll. Then he's like cinnamon roll. So like it's also enforcing the way that he says stuff. So it's really cute to watch, because he'll push the button and he hears what it says. And then it's a little murky the way he says it, but it's a genuine attempt at mimicking what he's hearing. So his language is taking hold in a way that it hasn't before, which is really exciting to watch.
He reminds me of, I think it's my brother Max. That's a Instagram channel and a YouTube and all that. And Max is autistic and his brother's not.
Okay.
And same thing, he'll say like Maxie, or like he'll only say like short sentences.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's like, autism itself is like, we don't necessarily understand it, but in a way they're very intelligent, they're very aware of what's going on, they have their own personalities. I used to work with special needs kids for Eddie's Club, so
Okay.
that was an environment where every Sunday you would drop the kids off, and then I'd be one of the buddies with other teenagers back in the day who would partner up, and for 2 hours you would
cool.
spend it. And then we also did the Cubs for little Eddie's baseball club, and we'd go to Virginia Beach each year with them, and
Fun.
yeah, so
No.
I'm very I've been around special needs a lot my entire life, and some of them are just really funny too.
Oh my gosh, he is such a force all on his own, even without words. Like it was, he's an energy reader. I think I learned so much from my daughter, and I'm learning so much from him even without words. Where it's like probably my favorite thing is that love is action, because he doesn't say I love you, and I think we kind of grow up thinking everyone, when someone says I love you, that matters, and not that it doesn't matter, but because he doesn't have the language to say that, he shows it. And so for me, it kind of took that route of, I don't want to hear it from people. I want to know, and I want to feel the way that I'm being treated reflects what you're saying to me. And that lesson took root with him.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words, literally.
Literally.
And love isn't just like a statement. It's a language of its own, and it doesn't need to be verbal for somebody to feel it. And I think that's one of the benefits is even what's your son's name?
I won't say his name online.
Okay, what's
Squish.
his nickname? Squish. And where's Squish come from?
Squish came from, so when he had his first heart surgery, I was breastfeeding, and he was in the failure to thrive category. Probably taking in 5,000 calories a day, trying to get my milk up to something that was really fatty that he would be able to grow with, and it just wasn't working. And we had a post-op appointment with his team, and he had basically lost so much weight that you could see every bone in his skull. And he was like, we need to start supplementing your milk. And so, and it's like, now I can't even feed my baby. Like, this is something my body is genetically meant to do, and I'm not even being able to sustain this baby. So it was really rough. So we ended up supplementing his milk, and he was really scrawny, he did not look well. There was not pictures for social media or the world at that point. And then he kind of turned the corner. He had a second heart surgery at 5 months, and then he started getting really chunky. And so I was like, he's getting Squish. And so Squish just kind of stuck, and he went from being like really scrawny to being squishy. And so Squishy has been his nickname. It'll probably be his nickname when he's a grown man at 45 getting married or whatever he ends up doing. It'll still be Squishy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We call Logan El Tuto Grande.
Oh,
Me and Lacey both have the same tattoos.
how cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's what we used to call Logan. So
It's always cool you pick little names for your kids. I think it's like important.
That's because Logan farted a lot.
Yeah, don't tell that to his future girlfriends.
Oh no, I'm going to ruin it. See, I told him I'm on the battle test his girlfriends. If they stick around after this, you got a good.
Then you can stay. Yeah. No, I get it.
Let's see here. Oh wow, look at that. We got 10 minutes left. So in the last 10 minutes,
Okay.
I open it up to my guests to kind of take the floor and talk about whatever you want, or if there's anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about, or
I can't think of anything else I want to talk about. I think one thing I guess I would hope that people would get from my story, or kind of what I've built, is it really doesn't matter what you weren't until you decide what you're going to turn yourself into. And I think, I was a high school dropout, college dropout, young mom, was evicted several times, really struggled in several seasons of my life, both mentally and physically. And to be able to have built what I've built on the other side of that, I think is a testament to what can happen when you really just own your shit and you keep moving your feet.
yeah.
And so I hope that people will glean that from it. I told Tiffany after the panel, I was like, I hope nobody thought that I was bragging about the growth that we're having right now, because it doesn't come from that. A year ago, I was watching my company go to shit and thinking maybe I should just shut it down. And so to be putting people on a wait list for 2026 Q1 launches is quite a change from what it was a year ago. And I think sometimes when you're in the shit, whether you're suicidal or you're just struggling or depression has kind of just got us its foot on your neck. It's hard to think that it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It's hard to think that this is not the end result. This is not where it is. And I just hope that people know that you can get out of that. And that was probably that was the darkest season of my life, even within abuse. That was darker with the suicide ideations last year. But I also think, like I said at the panel, I think it was meant to clear everything else out, because once that all kind of dissipated and settled, everything just blew up. And I think it was, I don't know if it was a test or a thing that needed to happen, but I'm better for it. And that's a blessing. And I'm also a lot more compassionate in that way as well, because, I don't have any tattoos except this one. And
Where's that one?
it's the semicolon. And I actually got it, one for my birth father, but also for a girlfriend that committed suicide when we were 16. And not seeing, we talk about signs of people that are doing what they're doing, and that's kind of like the path that they're going to take their life. Now that I know what I know, we should have known something back then, but you're young and you don't know. And so I hope that people reach out and get those resources, and schools invest in that type of work, because kids need to know what to look for. They need to know for resources, and not every kid has an environment where they can say, I'm struggling, or I'm crying, or I'm upset, or I'm depressed, or I'm cutting myself, or whatever. And I think we all need safer spaces.
Well, that's why I think it starts with communication and conversation, and being able to hold, like, what I consider is, how I say it is, I'm holding space, for these conversations and for these situations. And I think a lot of times you have to realize that you have to be real with yourself if you want things to change. Mm-hmm. And I think there's also a responsibility. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're going to get better. If you're struggling and you're continuing to push forward and you're trying to, align where you are from where you want to be, the works itself. Yeah. I think a lot of people are just like, well, it's my time and the world should just turn over and give me what it owes me. And, I should be able to be like everybody else. And you are 100% right in the sense that, like Jim Rohn says, life gets better when you get better. If you don't get better, it won't get better. No. What would make the marketplace pay somebody more? And it's because their attractiveness. It's not their looks, it's their abilities, what they're capable of. And I think sometimes along the way, with everything that goes in life, the sort of thing where imposter syndrome falls in is we forget what makes us and unique and special to the world. And we get so caught up with social media and looking at our friends and like, hey, this guy just bought a Lamborghini, and guess what? My Toyota still broke down 3 times this week. Right. It's hard to be like, how do I ever get there? But I think the biggest thing is, if you stop, it stops. Mm-hmm. And that's wherever you decide. Yeah. You have to believe that there's something more. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do when life is hitting you is to think that, well, this is just a small period of my life. It doesn't mean it's the whole chunk.
No, it is. And I think too, I don't anymore get caught up in who's doing what on social media or the success of it, because I know people share what they want to share, and myself included. I mean, we were in some of the darkest seasons, both myself personally and professionally. And my son was inpatient from post-op for a heart surgery, and I'm posting funny shit on the internet, and I'm like, I was absolutely drowning in postpartum depression, and nobody would have known that. And so I don't get caught up in what the facades are. I'm just like, it is what it is. And as long as I stay on brand with my assignment, then I'm good. And I want everyone else to do well. There's plenty for all of us. There's enough for all of us to, in the same lanes, make money and attract who we're meant to attract.
Oh, 100%.
And when you move with it, it's that it really is an abundance of it. And it's not, I got to have all my toys. I'm going to take them home because nobody else can play with my shit, or no one else can be in this space. And I just think that ends up creating divides that don't need to happen. And I don't know.
Well, I think we live in most people either live in abundance or scarcity. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people are scared because they don't know what they don't know. And a lot of times we build these platforms or businesses or whatever, and we're the decision makers. And sometimes it's hard to share a space because you don't know what's going to happen or how it could affect your business. And
Yeah.
sometimes you want to be like, I'm going to protect everything I built. But I think, there's definitely more value in trying to create communities and villages of
Mhm.
people that are like-minded, because there's billions of people in the world.
Yeah.
There's still plenty of room and space for everybody. And I think when we're chasing something, or when life is getting tough, or we're under constraints, it feels like that narrow pinhole that it's only this much space when it's really
So much bigger.
exactly.
So much bigger. Yeah. And it just, there's no joy to come from the comparison of things, because it all works out in the end. And that's just kind of the way that I look at it. So it might take me a little bit longer than it takes some people, and I'm okay with that at this point. I'm not in a race with somebody else other than what I want to do next.
Well, yeah. And Luke, I'm glad that you like the podcast, my dude. Thank you for
Aw.
being here. If anybody has any questions, now's your time to ask them. But there's a picture that represents what you're saying. There's a picture of Michael Phelps swimming a race, and the one guy that's racing against him for a split second looks up to see where he is, and that split second cost him the race because he was more focused on where somebody else was versus racing his own race. And I think a lot of times with life, inadvertently we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because everybody else is making their way. We want to feel the same way they do.
Right.
And in reality, sometimes your race is going to look different.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you justify that when you can't even accept it yourself yet as a young person?
Oh yeah. And I think too, when you are really in tune with what your assignment is and what your path is, you don't pay attention to it anyway. It doesn't really affect you unless it's a collaboration or cheering on somebody who does something that who's living out their dream. Sometimes it's jealousy. Sometimes it's their own kind of regret of like, gosh, I don't know. There's not a belief in them that they could do it. And so my hope is to always be somebody that people can look at and go, I was an absolute fucking dumpster fire for a very long time. To be able to have built what I built, like literally anybody can do this, because anybody can do whatever it is.
Well, wonderful. We are at 2 hours. It's been a wonderful podcast.
Thank you so much
We'll
for having me.
definitely have to have you back on, and hope to see you at the event.
Yes, I'll definitely try to be there on the 20th. I think the other one, for the 15th for Honey, I think I should be able to make that one as well. I'll do my best.
You should bring your son
and see what Honey thinks.
Well, not what Honey thinks, but he could help us write some hospice cards.
I'll see. It depends on the time, because with autism, schedules are a thing.
Fair enough.
So if it will fall in line with not upsetting bedtime, then I'm down.
Okay. I think he might like the cuddle corner with late.
Honey. I think he would love her. I absolutely think he would love her. Yeah, I've joked with my husband about getting him a therapy dog.
You should.
But I don't have the patience to pick up poop right now because we're still potty training. So I'm like, let's get him settled and then we'll look at a dog later.
That's why we carry around brown paper bags and we just leave them on doorsteps and light them on fire and run away.
There you go.
Burning bag of poop.
Oh, too funny.
Yeah, no.
She's so cute.
She is. Right, honey? Yeah, you sexy girl.
I was
beautiful.
sleeping.
Her's beautiful. Guys, tomorrow we have our podcast with Alan. He's another suicide survivor who, like my last two guests, is a self-inflicted gunshot victim. It's going to be very, very good. So much more coming your way. And then we have more podcasts coming next week. So we will see you guys very, very soon. So peace out, everyone, and have a great night. Oh, I almost forgot. How rude of me.
What?
Where can people find you and support you?
Gabi.Garland on everywhere. Gabi Garland, like Christmas garland. My podcast is called the Resilient Heart Podcast. You will know it's me. I'm wearing a hot pink tulle skirt on the front cover. And then my website is resilientvoicemedia.com, and that's all the podcast production and media that we do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we are out of here. Have a beautiful night.